we'll let folks gather. Their cars do drive through here, so we should probably, we're just come onto this side of the roadway would make sense, because there will be some cars passing through. The road is open. Again, thanks everyone for coming out. This event is part of the 48 state tour. We're traveling the whole country doing free hands-on gravestone preservation workshops to teach people how to clean and repair gravestones and monuments. You guys don't walk away because I'm about to introduce you. Because we have the local hosts here who reached out to me. I'll just say a few words that we're on week 2 here. And we've done, starting to lose track, I think this is going to be the 8th event, is that right?
8th event.
And so we're doing 56 events in the 48 lower states of the United States. We started the day after Memorial Day. I kind of just jumped over. My name is Jonathan Appel. I'm the creator of the 48 State Tour. It's funded by Atlas Preservation, which is the company that I'm the CEO of. And we also have some additional sponsors that have helped us out as supporting sponsors to help fund the tour a bit. Right in my face here is Jeremy Lazelle, who's an amazing videographer, and he came all the way from California to travel the whole country with us in tandem and film the whole tour. And he's going to make episodes and a feature-length documentary eventually at the end of this journey. And so this is kind of the Herculean Olympics videography contest. And he was the only one who was crazy enough to take it on. Well, I cut off the vetting after we connected, and so but anyway, we're really blessed to have Jeremy with us and capturing this, and so this is going to be shared to a much wider audience. I also have Alicia Williams with me, my partner, significant other, girlfriend. She's a historian, she's a photographer, she has many skills. She knows a lot about the history of gravestones and monuments and genealogy. So we're really fortunate to have her with us as well. My daughter Courtney was with us on the first week, but she had to peel off and go back to Atlas to help run the business. She is going to join us on the home stretch, hopefully for 2 weeks, or at least for the final week. So right now we're heading south from here, and we're going to be in Greensboro, North Carolina, then on the edge of Georgia, in Augusta, Georgia, and then down in Circular Churchyard in Charleston, South Carolina, which is going to be really exciting. At some of the events, such as yesterday, we were in Roanoke. It was a great workshop there, really well attended, huge media, and we're in the newspaper, which is really awesome. And help spread the word and get more people interested in the subject matter. But that event was really, really great. And we also had a special feature of a guy named Mark Clamp, who did a granite working demonstration and actually made a free marker for them to leave there, kind of to pay respect to the people that were laid to rest there. And so it was really cool. And I'll mention in Charleston, we're going to have a stone carving demonstration from a young lady who is a stone carver, just out of college for that, only a year or so ago, and she's going to do a hand letter carving demonstration. So we're really excited to incorporate other aspects of the field and kind of enhance the experience. So here we have the museum, which is really amazing. There's not many funerary art museums in America. I have no idea on the numbers, but they probably do here. But it's very cool that we have that here, and we also have a horse-drawn hearse in that building, and so we're going to include that as part of this experience. And so we're going to start in short order down here, and we're going to do like a walk and talk tour and look at the historic stones here, and then we're going to get into the cleaning, and then we're going to do the kind of museum tour, and then we're going to continue and do resetting, repair of broken gravestones and monuments, and as many different examples as possible. So I want to bring you guys up here, the staff here, who had reached out to me. And so people are like, how do you become part of this? Well, we put it out in emails, and it got shared on Facebook and social media. And so we had submissions and requests to do events, because we did get over 300 requests. And In some states, unfortunately, in the western states, we had 0 requests. So in the states where we did have them, some of them we had a lot. Like in New York, I think won the prize with about 25 requests. And so we, picked out of that 2. And so we're doing 2 events in Virginia, both in this area, so we're really excited about that. And I want to just turn it over to you guys and tell us a little about what you do here and how you found out about us. And
come on up here next to John.
Well, good morning. So my name's Ashley. I'm the historian here for Old City Cemetery, also the manager of marketing and event planning and all that good stuff. So we had our eye on the 48 state tour for a long time. We're really very, very excited that they were able to come this year. We've had a couple of scheduling conflicts in the past, and we're stoked that did not happen this year. But so my job here is primarily historical research, event planning, marketing, things of that nature. So we are a 27-acre 19th century cemetery, Victorian cemetery. We consider ourselves a Victorian cemetery, though we were actually founded in 1806, and burials went well into the 1900s, into about the 1960s until we closed for public burial. But overall, we have about 22,000 people buried here, and that is a very, very rough estimate because about only a third of them are actually marked with headstones. So 22,000 is a guess. It's an educated guess, but a guess nonetheless. We maintain 8 Potter's Fields here. 1 is current, so part of our contract with the city of Lynchburg, and this has been the contract since 1806 when John Lynch, founder of Lynchburg, gave us the first chunk of land to turn into a cemetery here. We were required to maintain a burial ground for the indigent, for folks who couldn't afford their own end-of-life care and services. So we maintain that today. So that, plus our scatter garden and our columbarium, allows us to hold the title of oldest active cemetery in the state of Virginia, which is a really cool title to have. We're also a level 2 arboretum. To my knowledge, we're the only one in Virginia. We're also the largest public collection of antique roses on the eastern seaboard. So we have a lot going on. That's not even mentioning all of the little historical buildings and all the events and our candlelight tours and all the stuff that we do year in and year out. So if you guys have any questions about our grounds specifically, please let us know. We're also here with our administrative manager, Whitney, our executive director, Jay, and several, guy in the red, and several of our regular volunteers who make headstone repair kind of their focus here and have for a very long time. So we're excited to have them to kind of learn the newest and the cutting edge of these skills here, and we're glad that all you guys are here too.
And I heard you guys are like one of the biggest tourist attractions in Lynchburg.
We're actually the biggest, believe it or not, several years running, like a decade running, #1 tourist destination in the city of Lynchburg. We've got several awards. We've won Best of Lynchburg a couple of times. And that's just because we do everything. we're definitely not a cemetery exclusively. We do all sorts of things. We try to appeal to everybody. We've got history and horticulture. We vary on a weekly basis. We see people from all over the country. We have at least 50,000 visitors annually.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's a great example here of what they'd call in historic preservation of adaptive reuse.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because this originally was not an arboretum and a museum, right? It was a graveyard. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to kind of walk gingerly around that because we have some like historic plantings that are very close to gravestones, and so if in an ideal world we probably wouldn't intermix those two things, but it's excuse me, what's it's already been done, and it's working, so we're just gonna work around it and be sensitive to the fabric here and understanding of the way it's developed and grown. But the flip side is the fact that you were able to do this kind of adaptive reuse has kept it vibrant and kept a lot of visitation and allowed funding from the city to continue to help out the grounds here. So that's really awesome. I will also say that the event we did yesterday at the Old Lick Cemetery in Roanoke, an African American cemetery. Now this also has an African American connection of sorts. Is that?
Yeah, so we're actually about 2/3 of our overall population is African American, and that runs the gamut from individuals who lived and died enslaved, all the way through individuals who ran successful political campaigns, became civil rights activists.
So it's interesting that it was integrated, sort of, or there was different sections, but
Yes.
the fact that it wasn't exclusively African American, because a lot of those sites, you know, historically with segregation were very separated. So how is it that they were all intertwined here?
Yeah,
Do you
that's-
understand that historically?
Yeah, so that's one of the kind of unique things that set us apart from a lot of other 19th century cemeteries. And part of the reason for that is that we were the first and only cemetery for a very long time in this area. And when you have an urban population, which Lynchburg did and does, what you're seeing in terms of enslavement is different than what you're seeing in rural areas. And so in rural areas where the enslaved were working on farms, they were often buried very casually in rural cemeteries, often unmarked. Here
Right.
you weren't able to do that. Nobody had land. They had to be buried here in the public cemetery. And we were the only cemetery, and there wasn't anywhere else to go. So
Got it.
there were segregated sections all the way through Lynchburg's integration, which unfortunately actually happened fairly late in the game, very late in the game. But
So are there some
cemetery as a
areas?
whole was integrated.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean
No,
to
no,
interrupt.
you're
Were there some areas that were, you know, all African American or all white? And
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
just trying to understand the lay of the land here, and it seems kind of intertwined. So
Yes, there are segregated. So you'll see here there's a brick wall that runs through our whole grounds. So everything on that side of the brick wall is how, when I'm giving history tours and things,
Yes.
I talk about that as our Victorian section. Everything on that side of the wall is segregated. So there are sections designated for,
So that was the
Blackberries
white
and white
side.
berries.
Well, the Confederate section's right on the other side of the wall.
and
so
that's a unique
that's
sort of.
interesting in itself.
Yes. But so so we have there's 2,200 Confederate soldiers buried right over there, and directly across the street is an African American burial ground. So it's
Very complicated.
very
history.
complex history. And then on this side of the wall, this is as Lynchburg kind of moved into a more integrated culture. And so there's not designated sections on this side of the wall. However, over there, the whole thing is chopped up for segregation.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much. You want to say a few words also?
I really don't, but
She's doing a great job.
I do
but
the
I'm
less
just-
sexy stuff like the numbers and donor management, but I also handle events like weddings and scatterings because we do have a very active scatter garden. So a lot of
Okay.
There's nothing sexier
The-
than segregation.
on momentous occasions, currently speaking for people, I handle a lot of that stuff.
It's interesting that, excuse me, but my voice will come back, that they do weddings in a graveyard, a
I
cemetery.
know, but we
And
have.
so that's just an interesting kind of gone full circle. And I mean, I've heard of that in a few circumstances nationally, but it's not that common. Just saying. So
we do 20-ish weddings
Wow.
annually,
That's a lot
but part of it is
because the gardens and the.
yes, but also we will rent the grounds for a wedding for much less than you can find an outdoor wedding anywhere.
Oh wow.
And it's rather picturesque and unique. And in the Confederate section has built-in seating. So
Wow.
we just have a lot of options here.
So has there ever been any movies or TV, thing filmed here? Because it seems like it would lend itself to that. Is there anything documented that's been done here?
Yeah, for
Media?
sure. Yeah, so we are, because we're a public space, we allow for filming. You know, people just sign a waiver basically that says you're not going to destroy anything, and then they can film. So we've had a lot of collegiate level film students here doing, filming things for their classes and their coursework, producing little kind of homespun movies. We do have a couple of folks who have reached out about some large scale productions. A couple of the theatrical directors here in Lynchburg have done some film work. So we're trying to be as visible as we possibly can. So we don't say no
Okay, great.
unless it's dangerous.
All right. Well,
Don't forget the goats.
And we have goats. People love the goats. They're back there. They eat peanuts. That's about all there is to say about them. They were supposed to work for us and eating things, but unfortunately they don't care if it's a weed or a 200-year-old rose. So they live in the fence and they're fat and happy and retired.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks everyone again for coming out. It looks like a great group. People are still kind of getting here, with parking a little challenging, and we also have some, possible weather, challenges today. So we'll play that, by ear. You never know what's going to occur. Yesterday we did quite well with that, and then late in the day it finally opened up, and there was some like a little thunder and lightning in the distance. But apparently, according to Alicia was tracking the weather, mostly it went around us, and so we actually were able to, right at the close of the day, raise up this fallen monument that had been on the ground for probably decades of a reverend, and it was really exciting to get that up. And then after that, it totally stopped raining for a period of time. So Mother Nature did cooperate. So we're hoping that we'll maybe we'll have a passing shower, right when we have a lunch break would be ideal. But anyway, the day is we're doing the introductions now. Sometime we go around and have everyone introduce themselves. I think it's kind of a large group to do that, so we'll probably skip that aspect today, and I'll just give you kind of basic idea of how the day will flow. So we're going to start in short order and do a walk and talk tour and look at some of the monuments here. We found some very dangerous monuments, even in a very close proximity to here. And I actually will mention that because okay, so just to back up a little, I've been talking about cemetery safety for decades, and when I say safety, I mean that could mean a lot of things. I mean, obviously you want to watch your step. I can't stress that enough. There is uneven ground, sometimes caskets settle, and the ground could be slippery also on the hillsides, and there's also animals like to dig holes, and groundhogs, gophers, we saw some big holes yesterday, and so be careful of that. But what I'm specifically really more mentioning is the monuments themselves. And monuments can be very unstable. Sometimes they look like they're straight up and down, but nothing is connecting them. Historically, they might have metal pins or rods holding them up, and those could have rusted away and failed. And so sometimes, even if they're standing up and down pretty vertically, they could be very dangerous. And so we found a few of these here. And so I just want to say, like, in general, and I can't stress this enough, don't lean on things, don't sit on things, and, don't touch things indiscriminately, because some of them are very unstable. Just yesterday, there was an accident, and a kid recently, like about a week ago, a gravestone fell on a boy, I don't know, 14-year-old boy or something like that, or
it was in Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania. And so my daughter posted that and shared it, because this is something that we kind of follow, and this is an accident, a cemetery. Well, then someone made a false news story out of it and said it happened at one of our events, and we had no issue at any event, but someone actually took the article. They didn't really do a good job, but because they put our name right in it in this kind of fake article, but then they said it was at St. Nick Cemetery. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to go over our schedule, and we don't have an event at a St. Nick Cemetery, so there's an immediate issue there. Additionally, we're filming everything, and we have pretty good sized groups, and so if something happens, certainly it wouldn't be a secret. But I just wanted to say that there's some strange people out there doing things like that, and so anyway, we'll move forward. But that just kind of brought it home full circle to me, because I have worked with some different groups like Monument Builders of North America and other organizations about the installation techniques on modern monuments and being more proactive to make them more structurally sound. It's a big subject we're not going to delve into too deeply, but I just wanted to touch on that today especially because of this unfortunate accident and this false news story that kind of made it out into the internet. So as they say, everything on the internet's true, right? So you can trust everything you read, right? I mean,
Benjamin Franklin said it.
No issue there, right?
Can you give us a little background about your company? Like what it's
Sure, that's a good thing to do. I try not to talk too much. I've been working in cemeteries since the mid-1980s originally. I did not have a family connection in this field. I had done a lot of different trades. Actually, the most formal training I had was violin making. And so I went to violin making school in the early 80s. I had dabbled in a lot of different trades, and I was self-taught, kind of tinkering, self-taught carpenter, and taking engines apart to make cars work. When I didn't have a lot of money to buy a good car, I had to fix it myself. So anyway, as time went on, I was working as a carpenter at that time in my 20s, and I was building additions, and I had only worked about 2 years my whole life I never had a boss. So I did work with a company and a really, really good carpenter, and learned a tremendous amount for a couple years, and I was very fortunate. Then I went off on my own, and I had a small company, and I was building some additions, doing remodeling kitchens, doing a lot of tile work, and I had a connection through a relative who knew someone who needed a monument installer for modern monuments. They owned a monument company. A lot of the monument companies today do not do the site work. In other words, they do the drafting, the design, which is today mostly done on computers, and they could order the monuments, but they don't actually install them. They don't do the digging. It's more of a designer thing. Like an architect wouldn't actually build the building personally, they would design the building. And so it's more like that. And so they're in sales and design. And so anyway, that's how I initially got into it in the mid 80s as a monument installer. And as I like to say, they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And within less than a year, some folks came to me and said, "Are you interested in digging graves?" I never thought of being a grave digger. I never did any heavy excavation. I did do foundation like sonotubes under decks and additions. So I was experienced, with digging a little bit. But one thing led to another. I became a grave digger. Ultimately, the bigger title, a little more glamorous, a cemetery contractor. So I had crane trucks, dump trucks, backhoes, stuff like that. Compressor to get through the frozen ground, all those fun things. It was basically construction, but in a cemetery. As time went on, I got more and more interested in the historical aspect. I was just fortunate, and it was circumstantial and coincidental that I was working in and around some of the oldest graveyards in America. Occasionally, I got called to raise up a fallen historic stone if it was vandalized or came down in storm damage, because I was the one who was an expert in, as I say, moving heavy things. And so usually I did that with a crane, and with modern monuments, you use a really heavy hand truck to roll them out, and it's different techniques. Occasionally a tripod, and the techniques are similar but different and related. And so anyway, I saw the future of the potential in the preservation restoration. It was more interesting to me. And as I said, I had a background that was very diverse, including the violin making and woodworking. And I liked something more creative, unique, not just, I installed thousands of monuments. It started to get boring, honestly. It was tended, and a lot of pressure because everyone needed everything yesterday. In the winter, no one knew you, and in the spring, everyone was your best friend. So it was very seasonal and very demanding work. And so anyway, I was able to transition laterally into another field that was not as well developed then. And I did that by seeking out a lot of knowledge and training through organizations, joining groups like Preservation Trades Network, Association for Preservation Technology, American Institute of Conservation, attending events, going to workshops, learning about mortar restoration, and reading a tremendous amount of books and everything I could get my hands on. I was always a learner from reading. My parents were both professors, and so, but I was different because I like to build things and fix things my whole life. And so anyway, that's the history, and I try not to talk too much, and I do, but that's how I initially got into it. And then I started to work on the historic stones, and people started wanting to ask questions like, "Hey, you're doing this project, can you teach us how to clean the stones safely? We're confused, we're hearing different things." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And so I started to do more workshops and training. Initially, I got involved with a group called the Association for Gravestone Studies. Later, I was on the board of directors there, and then head of the conservation aspect for a period of time. And with that group, they did a yearly event in a different location every year, a lot of them in New England, but in different parts of America. And they did a 1 or 2 day hands-on workshop as part of the event. And so then in the very early years, the late 90s, I was an attendant, and later I was helping run it, and then eventually I was in charge. And so through all these different kind of, like, you know, reaching out in all these different directions, I started to make all these different connections, and that led to doing more and more workshops, and that's how I got to be where I am. But there's one more thing I'll just say briefly, is that I was traveling around the country then. First time I went all the way cross country, I think, was in 2006, and I did a few events on the West Coast, and I was working in different regions, and I did a lot of workshops in Oklahoma and Arkansas. I've been working, and there's just not many people with knowledge in a lot of parts of the country. And so as I started to do all these events, I was giving handouts to tell folks where to get the materials. And it was really complicated because you had to get something, you know, one product from one company, another product from another company. Generally, they didn't want to sell small amounts. And most of these companies were more industry to industry, and they were really set up like, you know, for the granite industry, for people that were manufacturing or professionally working like in installation. It wasn't so much for an end user or to do one stone. And so I had the idea that came up in my head that it would make sense to put everything under one roof and to make it much easier for the end user and for small projects to size things smaller, so people didn't have to spend an arm and a leg to fix one stone. And so that's ultimately, I had a couple of false starts, and eventually I was able to materialize that in 2016 with Atlas Preservation, and I started that with my two sons, twins, in that time in their 20s, just about getting out of college, and so the early days were quite slow. And now we have a really significant growing business. A few years back, my daughter Courtney joined us full time. She has a master's degree in science, but she was frustrated with the pressures in her field and things, and she came and joined the family business, which was huge. And today, her husband is with us full time, Will Clark, and he's awesome. They got married last year, so I'm really blessed. And so I have, they're all in their early 30s now, and so I have 4 young, smart, you know, individuals in their early 30s, you know, really running the business. I made all of my kids part owners when I started the business, so that it was going to be their future too, potentially, and now it is. And so everything is intertwined. They don't travel like I do. My daughter loves to, and she's like, I want to do the whole tour, but she had to go back and help run the business. But anyway, that's how it all developed. The 48 state tour, briefly, was my vision, and I wanted to share this knowledge. And I got really frustrated when the world shut down during COVID. And first I was, you know, just like a lot of people, confused, and I was, you know, didn't really know what to do. I watched every event that I had scheduled get canceled. So I was going to be exhibiting at conferences. I was going to be doing performing workshops like this for fee-based, you know, and everything got canceled, the whole calendar. But it was really blessed because cemeteries were pretty much universally exempted, because they figured everyone was going to be dying and you can't shut a cemetery down. No one stopped to think that someone could be out there cleaning stones or fixing the stones in the cemetery. So I was able to sort of thread the needle through that, and I created the 48 state tour during COVID, and I never had an issue with COVID because people could be 6 feet away and we're outside. And so it was a blessing. And actually, not the whole, you know, thing was a nightmare, but the fact that I was able to, you know, make lemonade out of a lemon in essence. But a lot of people got into the cleaning then of gravestones and wanted to do things outside because they were, you know, they were bored. Things were shut down. They weren't supposed to go out, but I mean, restaurants weren't open. Even churches were closed for a period of time. And so actually the field of gravestone cleaning seemed to grow. And also, we at Atlas sell products into many fields, like window restoration. And all of a sudden, we were selling like all these products for, like, you know, and it was like kind of a going joke, like, you know, I mean, I'm not sexist, but, you know, the husband couldn't say he didn't have the time anymore to fix the windows because, you know, he was stuck at home every day. And so we were, you know, selling a lot of landscaping tools and things like that because people started growing more things in their garden. So anyway, we made it through that period, and I never had a vision of doing this forever. And then the first year led into the second year and led into the third year. And actually the first year I did the Virginia event in Bedford with Alicia, and that's when we first met. And later then, you know, we connected after that, and so one thing led to another, but it all started by doing the workshop in Bedford because I needed a location on the 48 state tour. And anyway, that's about it. So here we are today. This is the most ambitious 48 state tour ever, and we're going to start actually doing something now. But I appreciate everyone coming out, and it's a lot of fun to be here. And so we're going to take a walk around now and look at some of these stones and talk about it. I encourage everyone to ask questions. Don't be shy, and even point out something you see. Say, what about this? Or, you know, like, that's what it's all about. We want interaction. Say one other thing, like a little to the side. One of the things I really love about this, and yesterday it was amazing, to bring people together. I like to be a conduit for people to meet each other, make new friends, or become volunteers, you know, in new places they didn't even know existed. And so I love the fact that that was occurring at so many events so far this year, and I'm sure some of that will happen today. I see a whole bunch of new faces here as well, which is great. And then I see a bunch of familiar faces as well that have been to previous events, even a few of them yesterday. So that's about it. So thanks again for coming, and we're gonna head into the cemetery and look at some stones right now. Just one more thing real quick. There's bathrooms right to the right over there of the building, as most people know, but that's really significant because a lot of sites don't have that, or they have these portable things which aren't really that much, you know, nice to, you know, write home about. Just one more thing kind of before we actually walk out there. So we're going to take a walk and talk tour, and we're going to talk about the stones, look at the problems, touch on the history, the geology, the soiling from the biological growth, and everything we see. Then we're going to do a gravestone cleaning demonstration, and that's folks can then do participation and help clean some stones. And we're probably going to work our way over there and do that a little further up there where there's a higher density of stone. Then we're going to also have a little bit of tour of the museum areas, and people can do that and have a lunch break. And then we're going to do more hands-on repair for people that stay all day, provided the weather holds out. And so that's the basic scope of the day. And again, thanks for coming. And we'll just let this car pass. Well, maybe not. And we're about to walk across the street here. So please, yeah.